Hello, everyone.
So, today's podcast is going to be a bit different. We're essentially ripping off Theory Neutral,
Oh
but
no!
with
I
a
mean,
little bit
it's a
of,
good base.
yeah, except we're not on Spotify. So,
Oh,
no. Um, so, I am going to share a lovely little presentation.
ooh,
Um,
lovely little presentation.
and today we're saying turn, ooh, she's different.
Ooh, she's different.
And so we've talked about this paper a bit on the Langtime Studios Discord, and some people said that it was a classic, but I don't think that I was aware of this paper until maybe a month ago, right, Miles?
Yes, I was also unaware of this paper, but it, yeah.
Um, so what Hyman does in this is it's a really interesting breakdown about some of the uh, commonly held beliefs about tone and how examples, especially from Africa, but also Papua New Guinea, Mexico, and Mesoamerica, and some Amazonian languages, though not enough Amazonian examples for my taste.
I
Um,
agree.
yeah,
None of North
uh,
American examples for my taste.
but we can't blame people with
We
regional
can.
specializations.
So I think what also why we wanted to Booba Babble on this is because that a lot of conlangers introduction and kind of where they stop on tone is they might be well familiar with a lot of the tone languages of Southeastern Asia and of Mandarin. And I think that's where a lot of people get their kind of ins. Once you get those tones, once you do delete those final level codes, once you do, devoice those initial onsets, then what?
Yeah,
What math?
and and also um, what happens what happens if you one thing that comes up quite a bit is you have a voicing distinction in your stops or in your obstruents more generally, um, and then you're left with a series of sonorants um, or vowels with no initial, for example, and you're like, what happens now? And you can just assign them tone, but there's some really interesting phenomena that happens in autosegmental phonology that I think I think as someone who has become a lot more confident in conlanging using Lexergy,
Mhm.
autosegmental phonology throws a bit of a spanner in the works because you have to throw all of that out and say, I'm not going to rely on a computer program to tell me what my forms are.
No, God forbid. Two things. A, I'm gonna fix my window because I have developed stripes as it seems. I don't mind them, but I have the
Like
bad case of
zebra.
them. Number two, I am the zebra. But as what I have noticed is what I have noticed. Oh god, there's something. Please stay. Is that oh no. I forgot what I was gonna say. This is good enough. Oh no. Okay.
I love this quality podcast that we're running.
This is why we do it live because we will always do it correctly. I'm gonna stay a zebra, other than my left hand side. That is fine. I forgot my point. Oh well.
Should we just carry on?
I think we're gonna figure out that not only are we gonna answer that question, is it different, but she's very different. By the end of this pod, by the end of the babble, our goal is to answer the question that one Trixie and Katya have asked people before, and it is, who would play her?
Who would play her?
Who would play Tone?
Mhm.
That's a good point.
So actually, this might even. So I've basically just put a whole bunch of the examples in this PowerPoint because the text, you can read it yourselves at a better pace. And also, I don't want to have copyright infringement.
Yes.
So I guess the question is really, what can tone do? Is really the basic question this paper has. And then that's followed up by how is that different to other systems? So the Somali example shows us basically, oh, you can see her, my mouse.
Yeah.
It basically says that, for example, you have these underlying forms, and then the gender that you apply changes the gender of the noun that's being described. So you have Inan is a boy and Inan is a girl. I was trying to think if there was a good example of this with stress. Stress is kind of what most conlangers end up using, at least if, I mean, I think even when I see conlangs made by people who have tonal first languages, stress is often what we end up gravitating towards. And if we do tone, more often than not, we end up doing something that's in this China, Southeast Asia sphere. Um, and often not even with some good Sandy rules, for example.
Yeah.
Like, and that's no shade on anyone.
No, it's just to be like that. I mean, if you're doing a Mandarin thing and you have 3 out of your 4 tones contours, like that's going to have to reduce down a little bit. It's got to squish up.
Yeah, and think about like place and stuff.
Yeah.
But one of the things that really comes out in this example is the idea of the tone bearing unit, or the TBU, where if you've not familiarized yourself with the literature on tone, it might not be immediately obvious. For example, the difference between a form like naas. Wait, is that a glottal stop or is it
No,
a
it's not a pharyngeal naas.
or
Naas
naas
is naas.
or naas and naas? Somali speakers who follow us, we know the 2 people who have subscribed.
Definitely will be watching this.
There will
But
be
if
a
either of
Somali
you,
person.
there will be a Somali person. I'm hoping so. The other languages we cite are probably a little bit hard to come by in terms
Yeah,
of our viewer reach. But Somali easily.
yeah. Tell us how to correct our pronunciation.
Yes.
Also, I don't think this can't be right. It's not going to be Gorai. It must be Gorai, right?
Gorai versus Gorai.
Gorai or Gurai. Yeah, it can't be a vowel because basically what this is showing that where you have one vowel in the final syllable, the tone shifts between the penultimate syllable and the final syllable. But where you have 2 tone-bearing units, or 2 mara, or whatever you want to call them, like in Darman, you get a contour in how it's produced in the end. So, Hesan versus Hesan. I don't think I did that right at all, but anyway.
Better than me. I think that was the form that I would have probably not chosen. Damer versus Damer. See, that was meh. But in kind of this line of thinking of like where, like what could be an analog of this, the only one that came to mind is kind of the English marking of some underlying forms with stress, where if you mark stress, it'll become a noun, versus if you change it, it becomes the verb. So like the classic example, present versus present, record versus record. And there's also, I guess, that like tense and lax distinction too, a little bit with that there. Maybe some sort of combo there. But that's the only thing I can maybe think of top of my head.
And I think this system might not actually be too hard to evolve. If you think about where the feminine came from in Indo-European, where you have a final collective suffix that then is reduced down to the point where it becomes a vowel alternation in many of the languages that we have at the end. If you can imagine that this becomes some kind of tone marker, then you could imagine that all of your feminine words end up having final high tone, and all of your masculine words could have it elsewhere, and then it just gets systematized into this kind of system. And it would also mean that, for example, if like you can imagine that if nas just meant stupid to begin with, you could then use this system to say, oh, well, it ended with a voiceless fricative, which is going to give it a high tone at the end, but we're going to shift it back, forward in time, so forward to the first syllable, and now that means stupid man, and that means stupid woman.
Nas is the example of this that voice like kind of jumps out at me, because like it really is quintessentially like an animate noun, and I wonder, because of how that plays into it, it might maybe be like a mistranslation of fool potentially. Again, I'm not Somali, but I'm wondering, like, kind of what you were saying is, could this be mapped onto like maybe any adjective? Is this only inherent to like animate nouns? How far reaching is this?
Well, this could be like in I don't know if it's Austronesian languages in general, where adjectives can also stand in for a noun referring to something that has the relevant characteristic. So like there would be there is a functional difference, but in citation form, there isn't a true difference between something being stupid and being a stupid one. You know?
That is kind of, and from what my understanding, how Georgian also works in their adjectives.
So I think we've got not too many slides, but
enough to last us.
Yeah. So yeah, the tone inventory is another thing where I think we love you all, but sometimes you're doing too much. You're doing too much.
What?
Like the Vietnamese or Cantonese, some people think has 9 tones. I mean, it's underlyingly more like 6 because of the checked tones. But anyway,
yes,
sometimes simpler is better, especially if you're then going to try and use these tones to do anything vaguely interesting. So we can see in these examples, you have 2, 3, 4, 5 levels. And I think the point that Hyman really tries to hit home here is that there aren't really many other phonological features where you can get this same alternation in a single change.
Yeah.
He uses the example of vowel height a lot. And if you wanted to be really annoying, you could compare it with like place in some languages. Like Kakaru has 7 different places of articulation, but it's not really the same minimal change which you see here, where in Kam, literally the only thing that's changing is he calls it F0, formant 0. It's literally just pitch.
Yeah.
Um,
Talk, talk, talk.
yes.
There. That meant the eggplant of the father's thorn was stepped over and then cut down in calm.
Of course, of course.
Yes.
A trick is the example that we come back to a lot in the paper of one of the no, it's not. I think it's the Kam Shidong example. But this has a nice comparison of the different kinds of tones with you've got your 5 ne 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 no, there's 2 falling tones. Ne ne. I'm doing an open vowel. This is
ne 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 ne.
Yeah.
So I don't think we're going to get any of the
because...
3K speakers going in. I don't think
Yeah.
that pool is big, but yeah. Which is, I'm very curious to see just like the 3-2 to the 3-1 just seems like that's awesome how that came to be. Like that's interesting.
But what we'll see is that some of these distinctions, obviously here it seems to be like contour tones. I think this must be the entire like toneme inventory. I don't know what they're going to be able to see when we release this. I was doing some scare quotes, but we'll find out. We'll find out what you can see.
And like, yeah, I mean, like I staged the whole thing. I mean, I'm just striped today. Also, what I was gonna say, gosh darn, I had a really good point too. Oh, it's I think and I said this before, like it's gonna be cool of how that 3-2 versus 3-1 gets there. That's awesome. But like when it is in a phrase, when we're talking about the cold water versus the cold meat, that's where the stuff's going to kind of really break down and be kind of cool.
Yeah. And to tell a lie, if you want some examples of stunning example sentences, look in the Conlang Resources channel on Langtime Studio Discord. We should be plugging our own Discord. Really.
Yeah, we should plug our own Discord. Like we have grown independent. We are now asexually budding off from Langtime Studio.
We've grown 400% from where we were at the start of the year.
Absolutely. I am apparently actually a ray of sunshine, and that window today is really pointing that out.
You're multiple rays of sunshine.
I'm the rays are diffracting.
You are the spectrum.
Ooh, the visible and infrared and all the electromagnetism your heart could desire.
Yeah. So one of the next things in the paper to keep things chugging along.
Yes.
It is basically, I think for Conlang, we know what things languages do, and we know that tone exists, but we don't necessarily think tone can do all the things that languages can do. And one of the things that struck me when I first read this paper was just like, and this comes with the caveat of the tone in your language shouldn't do all of these things. Remember that these names, Zapotec is not Nambiquara, is not Abo, but these are all languages in which person marking, tense aspect marking, negation is done just using tone, which I think is just awesome.
It's so cool. Like, there, umlaut has nothing on this.
No.
Like,
umlaut wishes she was tone.
Umlaut wishes she could be tone. I think going right now, my two people who I'm really thinking about who would play Tone. By the end of this, so far we'll see how this goes, and we will select one person. My line of thought is going down either the Meryl Streep path, the Drew Barrymore path, or now wildcard the Jodie Foster path. So now we're really getting into who really is Tone. How different is she?
Yeah.
Umlaut is Kelly Clarkson. Like, she's now relying on the covers of other people to make her relevant and has a talk show. Sorry, Kelly Clarkson. If you watch this, I'm isolating you from our audience. You know,
who's the Semitic tribe? Well, not just Semitic. We must acknowledge the indigenous languages that somehow manage to have the same systems, but with severe underfunding, meaning they get ignored. But try and buy consonantal systems. Who are they? Like Anya Taylor-Joy?
ooh, possibly so.
Like, we love her, but we don't know enough about her yet, you know?
I think also Mia Goth is in that era.
Yeah.
Sydney Sweeney.
And by we, I mean me, because I know that people have been studying Arabic.
People have.
But yeah. And shout out to the Igbo people, my family's people, and maybe I should be doing that as a good ally, but I feel like when I see Igbo in my life, I think yes, Nigeria doesn't come last. It
does not come last.
It comes 13th.
Yes, it's soon going to come 5th in population. Also, yay! Last little bit, and we have to move on. Is that sitting on my kitchen counter as we speak is a unopened bag of Jollof flavored fonio, and I want to try it so bad. And I'm very excited, so I might have that for lunch later.
Mm-hmm. So, so one of the things that Hyman's doing in this paper is basically keeping the receipts and then finding the answers. And he cites maybe we can find out who he's talking about. Basically, the idea that case can't really be marked by time. It was Ray Jackendoff, which is a very funny name.
It's a very, very funny name. Ray, if you're out there, good on you. Jackendoff.
So, and this comes back to this whole idea of linguistic universals, aka linguists who haven't studied enough of the world's languages to think a Natlang will do it worse. As Conlangers, we know that we have not yet discovered the boundaries of Conlangs, of Natlangs doing weird shit.
No, we're always at the forefront of the weird shit.
So, and the thing that makes this even funnier is that this Maasai example comes from 1955. It's 1955. Like, this, and the talk was given in 2011.
There has to have been research on any Nilotic language that does this between the years of 1955 and now.
Well, the thing with the Maasai is that the people studied them because they're relatively well known, right?
And they jump high, yeah. No, I get it.
Yeah, be tall, jump high, kill lion.
Yeah.
Live in a interesting political society that anthropologists will talk about for the last 100 years.
Let's document our language. Yeah, perfect.
But yeah, like you can do tone with you can do case with tone.
With tone.
Wonder how many which actress has really surprised us recently?
Emma Stone. I feel like her things. Like I feel like I know she is like a Yorgos Lanthimos muse, but like also that was a tough role for her. especially when she did the yellow face back in the day. Like that's growth.
Yeah, yeah. We love people growing out of their racist phase.
Aw.
So
Oh,
now,
he.
okay, we have now entered the how do we explain this in terms that cough people who don't know tone very well cough are gonna understand.
This is where we fill in those gaps. I also want to point out like a little shout out to I believe it was the LCC 10, where there was a good a talk about tone grammaticalization. I think the president was Gabriel Swy.
Yes.
Yes, very, very good. Recommend watching that. Very well in depth if you want to get a good idea of how you can use tone also.
So this example here, I think probably it's worth saying what is downstep first of all. So with tone, we've obviously covered all of these weird and wonderful systems, but a lot of these examples that are coming up now is going to be high versus low. And the reason for this is that I don't actually know if it's the most common. I think it might be.
It probably is.
Either high and low or high and unmarked. But
That's what.
basically, she's the star, high tone.
Yeah.
She is the one that people are coming to see.
This is Sasha Colby.
Yeah, we all love her.
Yes.
And the feather queens are the low tones. But not every there's Sasha Colby, but there's also Sasha Velour, and you have
and there's also Carrie Colby
and Carrie Colby, and Willow Pill.
Oh,
but they can't all be at the same height, even though they're all stars. So what happens is the highest high, the Sasha Colbys, they make the other high tones get down a little bit. And they're not mid, but they become a little bit mid in comparison. Correct. And this is one example of how this downstep happens in this tweet. So me opo, I just threw those tones in.
You did great.
So we love these slashes, the underlying forms.
Come on,
I don't know what happened here. I don't know what the gloss is. If me is my, that's an iconic move from Chi, honestly.
I agree.
So let's compare languages that don't necessarily should be compared without knowing what's happening. But basically,
me is my.
Yeah.
So me is my, full is stone, and awe seems to be some sort of, it might be some sort of linking affix of some sort. Or some sort of marker of possessed. But yes, continue. From T.
So if this were Yoruba, then I'm aware that languages in Twi's also, I guess, technically in the Bight of Benin, maybe.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So they typically have these rules where you will not often get vowels of different qualities or certain qualities next to each other. So these forms, I think, are all valid in Yoruba. So if this were a Yoruba sequence, then the O has to drop out because of the E. But what happens is the low tone, she's still alive.
She has to go somewhere.
Yeah. And B and C, my lovely clipping of this doesn't really show you very well, but in some dialects of Tui, it becomes a contour tone with the low tone. Basically, she's finding somewhere to hang out, and she goes back. Yeah, back.
Yep.
Back. I love space. Anyway. Oh, you're a bit shady right now, Miles.
Oh, gosh, this fucking window.
Fuck this window.
Fuck this window.
Welcome back to Fuck the Window podcast. With,
this is well, now I'm like oversaturated, but I'd rather be that than.
Yeah.
Ooh, there we go.
There we go. And then in C, which is in other dialects of Twi, the lower tone, she's still there, and what she does is she just brings this this high tone that follows down a bit. Now in Yoruba, what happens is that the low tone historically would condition the quality of the high tone that followed. And there is an example of this phenomena in the paper, but I don't think I put it in the PowerPoint. Which that's fun.
That's fun.
It's the one about Miami 32. Okay.
Oh,
we'll
yes.
see when we get there.
We'll get to it. We'll get to it. We'll get to it.
I don't think we do get to it then.
Not in this paper, but it is number 32. So
it's after this. Things.
Yes,
it's after this. But yeah, no,
yeah.
We skip over it. But yeah, if you want more detail, have a look at example 32. So the next, this paper is very well laid out, unlike this presentation. And we get to section 4, where we get to the important question of is tone different? And yep, what she has to say is that it is more mobile, more stable. You can have a single tonal unit bound to multiple segments, and you can also have multiple tonemes on a single segment. And segments with no tone at all.
Where's the tone? Where is she?
Where is she?
Does she come into play? Maybe. We'll see.
And this to me actually is giving Joan Crawford, because she is stronger and faster, and she will always beat you.
And that's when the lights went out in Georgia.
Yeah. And no wire hangers.
Ever. Absolutely no wire.
Anyway.
Anyway, also, where is Nikki Haley's husband? Where is he?
Where is he?
Where is he?
So, the examples that follow are looking at these features and thinking about whether there are, rather than thinking how is tone different to what we think about it, like what are the features of tone and how does that compare with non-tonal phonetic features? There. So this is where we get into some quite close comparison of stress and tone. So, and this also is a reasonable example of tone plateau as well. So you can see from these examples of Debele and Zulu that in this verbal paradigm you have u, or u with a high tone, which is the class marker for people. Actually, I'm not sure now.
I thought it was the infinitive
Oh,
marker.
that would make sense with the gloss.
It would.
Uh,
Yeah, it seems like ku kuseka is
it's
the
just called
root.
the initial prefix.
Is it?
That's what it gets called here.
Okay, the initial. I mean, it's a prefix that's initial, and it has a form u. So okay, that.
Anyway, I love our professionalism. It's fine.
I mean, that's what you're paying for.
Yeah. Trying to Wiktionary it on the fly and going old
Any,
Norse.
anywho, so what happens is with this tone Mbele and Zulu is that as you start to kind of grow this verb out, the tone either spreads completely across, as in the Mbele. So we have to lav ukusleka versus to muse ukuslekisa, and then to muse each other ukuslekisana. Versus in Zulu, that underlying u is still high tone, but it just shows up in different locations along this in this infinitive. So
it's actually the same location. It's just the location is anti-penultimate.
I apologize.
And this movement occurs in both of these. So Ndebele and Zulu are both Nguni languages, as I understand it.
Yeah.
But the difference is that the high tone on the u prefix in Ndebele, she stays.
Yep.
And what happens in between this high tone, which moves kind of like how we would expect a stress pattern to move, is that we get plateauing, which is basically saying you've got a high tone on this initial u, you've got a high tone on, for example, here it's flick. And we're just going to make the ku in the middle high because it's surrounded by the loving embrace of other u.
Oh.
And it's so strong, this vision between the u and this high tone that moves, that we can have ku and flick both go to high tone. When in Zulu, they say, we're just going to move you to the anti-penultimate syllable and call it a day.
Did you Wiktionary this? Because I just did, and I found something very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So this it comes up in Zulu and perfect in Northern Mbele. So these are the same prefix of the class 15 noun prefix, and it forms the infinitive of the verb. So the verb here is just sheka.
Mm-hmm.
And then it becomes further modified by that. And then in Proto-Bantu, it does actually have a high-low sequence. So it comes from kuku, Proto-Bantu.
So yeah.
Nice. Ooh.
We skip over 10 examples. Study.
They're fine examples.
Like a lot of what happens is that we get a very interesting but quite long comparison of tone and vowel height. So there are lots of languages, not lots. There's a handful of examples where the kind of patterns that you see in tone happen with vowel height.
Yes.
And it's all very cool and interesting.
There was discussions about directionality of kind of the spreading, and I believe there was an argument that it is preservative rather than anticipatory. In other words, that the sound changes or the tone spreading would rather keep the feature and then kind of merge them together rather than change based upon an expectation of what is to come.
So we've got a nice example of upstep. We've got how to get more register tones, which might be interesting. But yeah, I think let's get to the Shanghainese.
I think we should, because this is a cool very thing.
So what when you look up the Shanghainese phonological system, you kind of think, oh, it looks really like not that different to Mandarin or Cantonese. But when you get to how it's actually pronounced is when you discover that not all is how it seems. So what you have here, basically how within functional words, the tone patterns, they get a bit different. So in this word meaning camera, you can see that even though each syllable has an underlying tone pattern, which is what we might expect from Mandarin or Cantonese, when it comes to their actual realization, these tones in secondary syllables get ignored, basically, which we also see in Mandarin, for example, where they have developed this pattern where in Beijing dialect, the second tone, the tone on second syllables, quite often is just left out, producing kind of it's not that dissimilar from having feet, I guess, in some way, where you have this rhythm of a tonal syllable and then an atonal one.
Oh, yeah.
Like in mama, for example, baba, where you have tone and then your fifth tone, which is basically no tone. And what happens here is that in jiang and qi, these mid and high tones, we don't care about her.
No.
And so the first mid tone of to becomes just assigned to to. The high is assigned to jiang, and the qi, she doesn't get a tone. Even though she has her tone, she lost it. She's not getting it back.
No.
And she's low.
Yep.
And this assigning of low to where you don't have tone is quite common cross-linguistically.
This is so interesting that all three of those words just like, well, I'm gonna try and do it. So, yeah, qi, and that is just not there. It's very interesting how it gets mapped onto these, especially when high tone. We're conditioned to believe that it is so strong, and to have it be just wiped away seems very interesting to me. That like even that T does not show up as a midtone is odd, but it is very interesting.
Well, this is where the comparison of tone and stress doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
Like we think of tone as being as accent, which we will cover more later, but of accent as being like stress in that she's kind of she's got a lot going on.
Yeah.
But in reality, a high tone syllable is just as likely to be deleted as a low tone syllable.
Ooh.
And is the big difference between analyzing Japanese as having stress versus having tone is not just the realization, but also understanding that that kind of drop in tone that happens in Japanese, it can be gone from that syllable specifically if the conditions are right.
I want to read somewhat a quote from the paper earlier on that let me kind of make sure I keep the most important verbiage. The most egregious cases of kind of when linguists cite some examples occur when linguists remove the tones from tone-marked examples cited from other sources, sometimes adding in a footnote saying that they have done so because the tones were not relevant to the current study. ... No other phonological feature is treated with such indifference as tone. I think that just speaks volumes.
Yeah. And we know why some people don't do tone, but it's something that is worth playing with because you can get such cool systems like you're seeing here. And obviously this is more lexical than grammatical.
Yeah.
But you can think about how something like this could apply if you have your grammaticalization going on and suddenly your I don't know what. I don't think any of these examples in Shanghainese would be that great from a grammaticalization. But say machine becomes a classifier. To use another example of something some people aren't all that happy about. Then the you could have your classifier tone moving onto the noun that's being classified and leaving just a low tone or a null tone in its wake. Something like that might be really interesting to play around with.
Agreed.
And speaking about tones moving, we have tone classes. This whole thing is a bit complicated, and the idea of a tone class it has a bit more theory in it than I think is useful to conlangers.
I agree.
It's not like although this is kind of the phenomenon that happens with the contour tones, right? You think that conlangers see an analysis of Thai or of Mandarin, and they think, oh, I just make my contours and then just slap them everywhere. And this system, if you like that, I think is going to work well for you. Just like don't copy this exactly. Don't do your own homework. So in Urarina, you have these 4 classes of tone. The A, B, C, and D are not technical terms. They're just things that the person that is being cited that we don't necessarily know the name of. Olafsky. So the examples in 59, the first words, they all have a lovely little final high tone. But you can see that based on the class, this high tone is then allocated to the verb in different places based on this class. And also that determines whether, like in makusahari, that stays. It doesn't get moved onto the verb.
This is so interesting to me because, like, just at first glance, like, this feels so pigeonholey. Like it feels like we can't like neatly pack like all these words into 4 classes. And I do wonder, like, again, like you said, it was very theoretical. I wonder how in practice it really does show up. But I think that points out like Yip's point of like how mobile tone is. That like in the majority of these examples, the tone that is shown is not even like A, on the word that is originally marked in, but B, it's showing up in different places, and C, there's only one high tone in all these examples. Like I'm very curious to see like how the verb paradigm is, and if there are some underlying tones that could affect the spreading.
Well, this is an interesting thing because there are a lot of languages with grammatical tone or
Yeah.
tone used to convey grammatical functions where you may get more complex contours on nouns than on verbs. Because for verbs to do these things, they do kind of need to have a lot more open space, some real estate for you to say that this marker, because actually if I don't I will get back to everyone. I have the Rarina grammar with me. Where is she? Anyway, she's somewhere.
Yes.
Thank you, SOAS Library. And see what happens with the other tone stuff, because it's a really cool example. Last few slides, and we got text.
Ooh, and look at that beautiful, like, ooh, come on, John Bybee.
Yeah. Well, come on, but also come on, because this is looking at how pitch accent, as it has been used, works. So in what Hyman really does is say, if pitch accent is different from other tone systems based on categories like obligatoriness, commutativity, privativity, predictability, and all these other things. If we can prove that tone in general does this, then you can't really separate the two. So on the obligatory nature, we have this example from Trave, PNG represent, where you can see how you can have all high, high and low, low and high, and you have all these combinations, but they have to have a high tone, which is what you see in a one syllable word with one combination H. And this contrasts with something like Harigi BQY, which is also from Papua New Guinea, where in one syllable word you have the obligatory low tone, and you get high elsewhere, but it's not obligatory. Obviously, you couldn't have two tones be obligatory in the same language. But it is cumulative, so you can only get one high tone in any case. And what's especially interesting is that you don't see every possible version of this. I'm not sure about in this example, but you find languages where the tone melodies on words they have exceptions that it can't be X, Y, or Z.
Yes, I remember they used the Pele example, which is, I believe, a Mande language of Sierra Leone. Don't quote me on that. But
and we've got to the end.
Go us.
Go us.
The question is, we know she's different. Tone can do wild, unimaginable things to your heart's content, and I will even say so myself, is that from learning this paper, I knew tone was different, and I knew pitch accent was what people had said it were, But my whole outlook on tone has, I think, drastically changed.
Yeah, like I have so many more ideas for things I could do with tone and how I might get there.
Yes. I think I to also shout out Conlang year. I have tasked myself in kind of creating not only three languages, but three languages with three very different prosody systems, where we have just good old fashioned stress. Two of them out of three are tonal. So I'm excited to kind of see how this plays out. Yeah. My final thoughts, in if we're trying to conceive a archetype of who would play tone, like who really could step up to the plate and tackle all of the shenanigans that tone could do and still surprise us. Oh, who?
Ooh. Viola Davis?
Viola Davis is a good example.
Mm.
I was going to say Tina Fey.
Mm.
I feel like she knocks out the park, but every single time, I feel surprised by her. I think it has to be a television star. I don't think movie people have the range.
Who would it be? Who would it be?
I thought of somebody. Do you know who Tone is? I think this has to be it. I think it's Allison Hammond.
Oh my god! Because she's going places.
She's
not an actress.
But that is even the best of all, because she's so different.
She really is
doesn't even need to be an actress.
Hmm.
Or like Gemma Collins.
Because this is the other thing with Tone. She never does play truly the main role. But she can be the star.
She can be the star. She's up there guiding everybody else.
Mm. She's in her own lane, and that is truly Allison Hammond quality.
I really do think it is. Like no one could nearly make somebody fall off a floating replica of a map of the United Kingdom and it's still be there. Nobody could almost be arrested at Pisa because they didn't have a film permit. Like nobody else could do the things that she's done.
This is true.
She also has a seat named after her at the theater in Birmingham that she would visit. Yeah. Ball, like who? Tone is everybody. You heard it here first.
Allison Hammond.
I don't. Yeah.
Well, I think we're wrapping up slightly earlier than an hour again, but I think we have done a very thorough reading of this.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where this takes us and this journey. And if you
think we is an inclusive we're talking to you, all the 5 people who will listen to this within the next month.
Yes, we're talking to you into your hearts, because also, do you think we're going to shout about Tone after this?
No.
Like,
you know me, Miles.
We're like this is where you get your conlanging Tone content.
Yes,
it is.
In this house, we respect that at least 50% of languages probably have tone.
Absolutely. And will we have that natural distribution? Yes.
Well, cool. No, we're gonna do so much tone, it balances out the natural distribution. All the other conlangers who don't fuck with tone.
You have to atone
for tone.
And everybody, this has been a Bouba Babble. This has been a great.
We have babbled. We have boobed.
Amen.
Drink your water.
Hydrate, everybody.
Make tone.
Cool. And we shall see you next month.
See you next month.
Bye, everybody.
We've got exciting stuff planned.
Ooh, yes, exciting stuff is planned. We have a multitude of things in the works. Don't you fret.
Yes.
And also our Discord. We have our own.
We come to our Discord.
Yes.
Write whatever you want. We will monitor it because I am chronically online.
Yes. I've started to touch grass, which is, you know, something.
You touch grass and you've touched grass.
No.
See everyone later.
Cool. Bye.
Bye.
Stop recording. Stop recording.